In this video, I'm going to talk about IP claims on Amazon, more specifically, avoiding brands that may lead to account suspension. And what I mean is avoiding brands that issue IP claims. And I'm actually going to show you a Chrome extension, and I'll show you some examples of how I actually use this Chrome extension to help avoid brands that may issue IP complaints. And before I do that, first of all, I need to really explain a little bit more about IP claims on Amazon. So first of all, what is an IP claim on Amazon? All right, well, IP itself actually stands for intellectual property. So I'm going to read this, which I took off of Google. A brand owner or their legal team may contact Amazon to issue an IP complaint for a specific ASIN. All right, so again, the brand owner or their legal team actually contacts Amazon to issue an IP complaint, and in doing so, they allege that the other sellers on the Amazon listing are unlawfully using the company's intellectual property. Amazon then contacts you with the IP claim, and you have to respond. All right, so this is how you get an IP claim. Now, intellectual property rights, IP, is not the same thing as a brand restriction, and sometimes people might get this confused. A brand restriction is some restriction, right? And there can be different restrictions. One might be that you can only sell it in a certain condition, or there can be various restrictions. But this is important because what it means is that you can actually have approval to sell the brand on Seller Central, but you can still get hit with an IP claim because having approval, right, not being restricted to sell that brand, all right, or having approval is not the same thing as the brand coming after you with an IP complaint. So, and really the problem here, potential problem, is that Amazon doesn't actually tell you what brands will likely cause IP claims. So even though you have approval to sell the brand on Amazon, it's not like Amazon's going to tell you, oh, by the way, this brand is issuing IP complaints these days, right? They're not going to tell you that. So here are some of the potential results of an IP claim. I mean, one not so bad result is that it could prevent you from being able to sell a particular ASIN on which you got hit with the IP complaint, right? Might not sound like much of an issue, but it could be if you already bought inventory, right? If you already have inventory for that ASIN, then, right, that could be an issue, right? Because you've already spent money in this ASIN. So, but the real thing that we're really worried about is the potential account suspension that, and it's not necessarily that one IP claim is going to lead to account suspension, but as we know, a number of things building upon your account, right, a number of violations, could potentially lead to some kind of account suspension, right? So basically, we want to avoid any kind of things that we can avoid, violations we can avoid. And so avoiding IP complaints, basically the primary way that sellers can avoid IP claims is to avoid the brands that are issuing the IP complaints in the first place, right? And again, the problem is that Amazon doesn't actually tell us which brands to avoid. So how do we avoid the brands? Well, it's about knowing which brands to avoid, and basically it's really only through experience of other sellers who are getting hit with these IP complaints, IP claims. That's really how we know which brands to avoid, is through experience. Okay, so for one, we got to check the restricted brands lists, okay, that are put together on different websites. That's one thing we can do, right? But I'm going to talk about that a little more. Why, this is not really enough. But number two, we can talk to other sellers. I mean, basically, I don't necessarily mean one-on-one. I mean like in a social media group that perhaps talks about restricted brands, or maybe has conversations when they get hit with IP claims. They might be mentioning some brands they're getting hit with. They might even have a list in some Facebook groups or something like that. But the third option is also to use software. And what I like about software, like the Chrome extension I use, is that they are always consistently building a database, and the fact that they can take the brand, any ASIN that I'm looking at, they can instantly check that brand, that ASIN, against their database to see if they're. Now, We need to understand that, though, in all of these methods, it's based on the experience of sellers, right? Sellers report a brand, hey, I'm getting hit with an IP complaint. And if enough sellers are reporting about these IP complaints, then that's how people are able to put together a list. That's how people are able to build their database of brands to avoid. So actually, I want to show an example of a restricted brands list before I show you the Chrome extension I use. Here's a typical brands list on Google. Again, let me just show you. You can pull up these lists just by going to Amazon restricted brands lists. Okay, if you Google that, you'll get some different results. And you see that, for instance, this website, Seller Essentials, who provides, obviously information for sellers, they have a restricted brands list here, right, which you could visit, right? And the thing we need to understand with these lists, however, of course, the list is basically, I would use the word static, right? It's a set list, right? Now, of course, they can update the list, but this is not like, it's not like this is live updating, right? So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I'm not talking about this list in particular, but just any restricted list that I pull up, if I go back here, any list that I pull up on Google, I don't actually know how up to date this list is. Okay, another thing is, it's not just about the brand being on the list. Why is it on the list? It may not have anything to do with IP complaints. Sometimes these brands are on this restricted list, and it's not because of IP complaint things or anything related to that. It might just be, a lot of these look like they are. Right? It says issues or restrictions reported, some risk, legal action. In this particular list, they're giving you they're giving you reasons, which is good. So, there might be some different reasons why these brands are on this list. All right, but let's say on this list, I don't even know why these brands are here. Sometimes it just might be more that you don't get approval for these brands unless you do certain things. So really, in trying to avoid IP complaints on a brand, is useful to have Chrome extensions, even more than one Chrome extension, if you really want to cross-reference and be really, even more sure about these different brands. But if you take a brand like this and you open it, here's a brand, PreSonus. When you have this IP Alert Chrome extension, right away it tells you this brand is known to file IP complaints. All right. Once I see this, I'm pretty much going to avoid this brand, because if even one Chrome extension says I should avoid it, for me that's enough, right? Okay. Here's another brand, right? That Buyer Dynamic, that when I open their products, it also says it's known to file IP complaints. Okay, this brand is known to file IP complaints. I would probably avoid this brand as well, right? But there might also be some brands where you don't get results, or what I mean is you don't get IP complaints. Let me show you here. So let's take a brand, especially like, I find like some really big brands like a Samsung. For instance, I'll just take Samsung as an example, right? I see all these green. That's good. Okay, when you see green, a green indicator, that's coming from the IP Alert Chrome extension. All right, it's saying that it's not known. Now, I do see one ASIN with the yellow, and if you point to that, it says IP Alert possible IP complaints. So that means they haven't gathered enough data on this ASIN to know that it is known for IP complaints, but there's some possibility there, right? But if they did gather enough data, they would say, yeah, there are IP complaints. And again, the software is telling you that it is known to get IP complaints. It's letting you know that the IP complaints are common. It's not really telling you that it's definite, right? No one can say for sure, but hey, if lots of other sellers are getting IP complaints on a particular brand or ASIN, I mean, I think it would make sense to avoid it, right? And that's how you use this. Okay, so there are many other brands. I mean, I can just type in some random brands. I'm using some famous brands like Sony, all right? And I can just kind of look at the results. Okay, I do see one yellow here, but mostly I just see green. But see, I see another yellow. So another thing, by looking at the results, the product results on Amazon itself, right, you can kind of get an idea of what's going on. We see mostly green, but we see a few yellows here and there. So maybe that's something you might want to keep in mind. we do see a few yellows here and there. I mean, right? But it's overwhelmingly green. Okay, and as I sort of mentioned a few minutes ago, you could even get, because I believe there are other Chrome extensions. This is the only one I use for this right now. But if there's another Chrome extension you can use as well, and the thing you understand about this Chrome extension, they're also going based on the experience of sellers. So there's sellers who are reporting to them, and then they're adding the brand. But the thing about this, about technology, using technology like this, is that it's instantaneous. As soon as they put a brand in their database, let's say Sony is known for filing IP complaints. Tomorrow, when IP Alert adds Sony to their database tomorrow, then it's going to warn you. You'll be warned right away when you open a Sony product about that IP alert. Where with the list, when you look at a static list, if something changes tomorrow, okay, and a brand is, it's not like it's just going to appear on this list all of a sudden, right? The owners, whoever runs the website, they're going to have to come back here. They're going to have to know about it, and then they're going to have to come back here, and they're going to have to actually modify this web page, and then you're going to have to know that you're not going to get an alert. So, I mean, you know, the Chrome extension really provides the technology that you need for the change of pace, right? The fast pace, fast pace in which things are changing, right, in this world. So, you know, the Chrome extension, I think, is really the way to go in helping you to avoid IP complaints, all right, on products. So if you're interested in this Chrome extension, I do have a discount code, by the way. I have a link in the description of this video to go to the for you to go ahead and look at the memberships that's available for this Chrome extension. As of the day of this video, they have an annual for a year, but they also have a lifetime. And you know, you have to visit the link to see how much it costs. I won't say, because it, you know, those things can always change. But I do have a discount code, which I suppose the amount of the discount could change also. So I do give you the code. And you can use the code when you get to that page and see what the discount is as well, and see if it's worth it for you or not. And if it is, and you know you'd like to get this Chrome extension, then I would encourage you to do so. So just see the description of this video. I have, again, the link to IP Alert Chrome extension, but also my discount code, which I was able to work out so that if you punch in that discount code when you're checking out to get the Chrome extension, you're going to save some money there. Now, and we do need to understand, as of the date of this video, the process that they do for the Chrome extension is manual in terms of making you part, adding your account. All right, I believe they do it manually, so it might take just a little time for them to do that. But anyway, you'll get the details when you click through. I don't run the Chrome extension. I don't own it. I just use it. I'm a user of the Chrome extension, and I'm finding it helpful for me in helping me make decisions about brands, what to sell and not to sell on Amazon, and I think it can do the same for you. And so go ahead and check that out, see if you're interested. And if you have any comments, any questions, or if you have any suggestions about this topic or about anything else, just let me know. Keep in mind, I'm not an expert, but this is based on my experience in the couple years I've been selling on Amazon, but also based on some light research that I've done into the topic as well. So if you'd like to contact me, I have my contact information in the description of this video. And if you have any other comments, questions, or suggestions, you can leave them below this video, or you can send them to my contact info. I'm Mr. Mark. This is Excel for Amazon. I look forward to seeing you on another video.